how many times we said the word speed? Let's do a count here. It's not the ROI of like, how much did this cost? It's the ROI of how fast do I earn it back? That's what I think most people miss in this. They're like, oh, well, this is twice the cost. It's like, no, this machine gets your ROI back twice as fast. I think you're missing the point of your business. Your business is not to not spend upfront capital. Your business is to get a ROI, a return on your investment. Speed there is probably one of the most crucial. So going faster, being able to scope big jobs is like, why would you mess around with $500 jobs if you didn't have to? If you could do $5,000 jobs, think how much faster your business is going to be off the ground running, and you won't have to say no to things, right? So for all those reasons, speed, I mean, on almost every aspect of this business, from the sales to the scope to the finances to all those things, speed should be considered heavily in this, that if this is something that you're trying to build a business around, you're going to want something that matches the pace of your business. Right? Welcome to Industry Insights with Mark and Mark, the first 2026 edition. Going to be an exciting year, Mark. What do you think? We ended up on a huge note, selling all those G6s, getting everybody launched. Our children are now out in the world, making grown-ups of themselves. It's going to be an exciting first quarter to see what's going on.
We've got printers in the flesh, in the real world. Christmas and New Year's for a lot of people were probably a break, but for our team down in Asheville, North Carolina, it was busy. Receiving shipments, getting people trained up. Now we've got 6 new operators with their printers starting to generate revenue.
This is rubber meets the road, people. This is where it counts. And this is what we build our entire business off of, is the success of our operators. And we're already off with a bang. The first print done not by us was a $27,000 print. So that individual hit the ground running and basically paid for half the machine in one shot. Took 2 days, I think they told us, 2 days to do it. So incredible. And then honestly, every operator respectfully will say they've drank our Kool-Aid, right? Although that has negative connotation. It's like, in a way, in this particular case, getting ahead of those sales, man, starting to fill their pipeline so that when they got their machine, they were ready to print. That's our favorite launch pad for any business. It's not the only way to do it. We certainly have operators that don't, that are just going to take it as it comes, and that's totally fine too. But the excitement here is the momentum, and that kind of segues us into what we're going to talk about today, which is a very interesting concept, because I think it's very misunderstood most of the time, which is the idea of print speed. What does print speed mean? How do you break it down so that people can understand that a rated speed and the speed you're going to run on a job site, like oftentimes, depending on whose spec sheet you're looking at, vastly different is sort of an understatement. So why don't we do this? Klauser, when I say how fast does your printer print, why don't you break down just sort of like very quickly, very high level, like what are all the variables at play there?
The biggest factors there are kind of the print head. So how fast can your print head jet ink? So how fast can it shoot the droplets of ink onto the wall? And then you've got obviously physical speed. And so physical speed, every printer is going to be fighting physics. At some point, you're going to go faster than you're going to feel comfortable wanting to go. So physical speed generally isn't the limitation. The limitation is your print head and, by association, ink system, and the ability to ensure that you've got enough ink flowing to the nozzles that you can jet ink out fast enough. And then I guess the other variable, which I forget because it seems so simple, but is literally just the size of your print head.
Yeah. I think if we really look at this, it's from the time, everything that goes into hitting print, it's like, how long does that take to go the rectangle that you've spec'd? How long is that? Right. And I think you nailed it. I think probably one of the most misunderstood aspects, and it's very subtle, but like also easily the biggest impact, is that width. So step me through that. We use the terminology swath, like printing swath, bands, rows, columns. Like there's lots of ways that you could potentially look at it. Why don't you give just a description, generally speaking? Let's not get into the weeds here of different pass counts and things like that. But generally speaking, what are we looking at when we do that?
Yeah, I mean, the technical term is pass, and it is just the number of times your print head passes over a spot to lay down enough ink. And the pass is always relative to your print head's width. Your pass is relative to your print head width. So 8 pass in one machine is going to be different than 8 pass in another machine if the print heads have a different width. And so passes aren't a unit of measure that people advertise, but you can't benchmark unless you know the width of your print head.
It's literally dividing up. It's like an eighth of your print head is what they mean by that. Right. So you take the width of your nozzle and you divide it. It tells you how many pass counts it is. Right. So 2 pass means you're dividing it in half. 4 pass is 4, generally speaking.
Yeah, so that the print head is moving up and down over the wall a certain number of times to achieve maximum ink saturation.
It's not also the reason though is not necessarily ink saturation, because you could run 8-pass, 6-pass, 4-pass. It would look the same in terms of density of ink. Yes.
Yes, but it does it in 8-pass. It does that same saturation in less passes or more passes than 6-pass.
Correct.
Yeah. So saturation is independent from passes. Passes allow you to achieve a certain saturation. That's kind of what we're getting at.
They're going to look the same. The end result is the same from a saturation standpoint. How you achieve that is different.
And so where all this is going is if your printer is incapable of achieving enough ink saturation in a low number of passes, you can increase those passes to achieve that level of saturation, which inherently slows down your printing.
Yeah, you and Liam, man, trying to talk to you guys about printers. Like I can tell already there's no, that is missed by most people. I think we got to back this conversation off a second here. Forget about saturation for a second. The main reason why you're doing passes is to blend. I hear you about like, because of the nature of the jetting of certain passes, we compensate for saturation by going over it. But I would say predominantly passes in the industry means blending, so you don't see printing artifacts. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
But you're really fixated on this on the saturation side. So I'm going to say, generically speaking, if you were to ask somebody, the main reason you do it for the vast majority of people has to do with hiding artifacts. To your point, I think what often gets missed is that sometimes printers that don't have enough volume of ink going on their heads, meaning they don't shoot enough, will use passes as a way of compensating for that lack of volume coming out on the first pass. Is that what you're basically driving?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, which is unique to wall printing, because most wall printers on the market are using print heads that are not designed to lay enough ink to achieve what the aesthetics that you would otherwise get in a flatbed standard print shop scenario. Those flatbeds are using industrial grade, commercial sized print heads. So they're always going to be able to jet enough ink. The passes allow you to get a much smoother aesthetic, less artifacts, where in vertical printing, generally speaking, until the VPG6, like the print heads have been grossly underpowered. And so you're having to account for that underpowered by increasing passes, which essentially ties to increasing the amount of time it takes you to print your image.
Right. Yeah. We're going to back all this off, guys, because we'll probably end up doing a print head. Yeah, full circle. Exactly. We'll do a print head specific one and get into some of the piezoelectric waveform, how it actually functions. We'll dive deeper into that if you're curious about why there's a limitation on volume and what some of these print head quality concerns are from its construction to how it performs, but not for this particular episode. Basically, what we're getting at is the larger number of passes that are required to get the quality that you're going is going to slow down your machine. And what we're saying is different print heads will have different pass counts and thus will have different speeds. It all ties back to when you're watching your printer print, how many times does it have to go over the same spot? How far does it move along the wall on each pass are the two biggest determinants of that. Is how many times and how far is it moving when it passes over? How far does it move? Right. And the wider your print head, the further it moves, which means it's printing significantly faster. The faster you can go on the X, the faster the print's going to get done. Increasing your speed on Y will have an effect for sure, but definitely significantly less than moving along the wall in bigger chunks by quite a large margin. Because if you think about it, the way that you would calculate print time is you would say, how many times do I have to go up and down, right, to finish this rectangle? So how long does it take me to go up and down? How many times do I need to do that along the X-axis? That will be your predictive value of how long it's going to take. It gets complex when you get into intelligent printing, right? So you're not printing a rectangle that's consistent. You're printing something but a good like rule of thumb way to measure it is how long would the rectangle take, right? And then you would just subtract from there if it's something that is, amorphous, where it's not an actual full rectangle. So based on that, what I really want to drive it to is like, what is the effective speed? I would say vast majority of people I talk to that are excited about cheaper machines would say, that's fine. Like slower is no big deal. I'm going to get going with the slow one and then I'll upgrade to the fast one when I hit volume. Like what are your thoughts on that? And especially as it relates to job scope.
You think about that until you get onto a job site. And then you start printing and you're like, man, I really wish this would go faster. Just psychologically, you wish it would go faster. And then you do a few jobs and your business starts to scale, which means that you start to get either more prints in a given time frame, more prints in a week, or you get larger prints where then you really start to hit a bottleneck. Because if you're taking 14, 16, 18 hours to do a print that's going to net you, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, it's like the time to money ratio is there, but the practicality of being on site for 18 hours straight is just like mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
By printing twice as fast, you go from 18 to 9. Well, that seems like an easy day, like 9 hours, no big deal. And you're achieving the same thing. So it just has such a big impact on your ability to scale, given that we're trying to print big things. If you're only printing within your shop on canvases and whatever, then the difference between 45 minutes and an hour and a half is like, all right, fine. That's not a huge deal unless you get into big numbers. It's when you are trying to print for big clients with big contracts to essentially build your business. I mean, the purpose of buying these machines is to start a wall printing business, and a wall printing business is predicated on your ability to print lots and large images on the wall. And so the faster you can do that, the more profitable you're going to be. That's what it comes down to. Speed equals profit.
I agree. I think something that you kind of missed there, obviously, it's quite a lot to cover all the ways speed factors into a job. I think one of the biggest ones I see, especially out of like new users or anybody stepping into this or trying it for the first time, is that risk factor. And what I mean by that is like, if something goes wrong, what's your remedy?
Yeah.
And the reason speed plays such a role in that, imagine you're sitting there and guys, if you're watching this, let me tell you something. Mark is not pulling any punches by saying 18-hour prints. That's how long decent sized prints take with these machines. Like the smaller machines, they crawl. I mean, for us, maybe they're fast for everybody else, but like for us, you look at that, you're like, my God, that is like really not moving very quick at all. Like he's not exaggerating. An 8 to 10 to 12-hour print, I would say, if you're anything even reasonable in the thousands of dollars for this print, you can reasonably expect that's what it's going to take you to do it. What happens if it goes wrong? You're 8 hours into a 10-hour print and something goes wrong. And don't sit here and tell me things don't go wrong. Sometimes it's not even your fault. It's like, that's just the nature of being on site. Something's going to happen. Murphy's Law will bite you eventually. You're now 8 hours into a print. You lose those 8 hours and it's going to take you another 8 hours just to get back to where you were before that mistake happened. I think that there's something to be said in the physics of the momentum of your business, that there is almost nothing more damaging than like having the business, having the big scope, all the stuff that we preach in our academy and everything. If you watch us online that we talk about, you are really going to expose any sort of issue that you have to repeat. You like tank the job, right? Like, and there's a lot of reasons for that too. Like customers don't want you in their space that long, frankly. Like that's a misconception of like, people think it's so cool, so they want you there. Like, no, a better service gets done quicker and with, more expediency.
Having been there many, many a times on site, having failed prints and all of that, financially, you can still make money if you print it twice. The biggest impact for me was psychologically.
Yeah.
Knowing I had to go back again, restructuring my entire week around that mishap, and then spending that amount of time again setting up the printer, not being totally confident that I'm not going to run into the same problem, like just took the wind out of my sails, man. It really made it difficult for me to then turn around and say, hey, yeah, I'll knock out that next print for you. No problem. Let's double the scope. Let's do more. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I can handle more. It's just like my nerves are just so shot. Yeah.
It's a feeling you sort of have to get there, and you have to say about to hit print on your own print, that all the talk I did to you when I had my own machine and it was about, I was like, actually, maybe Klaus just got a point. This is a bit intimidating. Like, I really hope this works. This would be embarrassing if it didn't work.
But if it was you're twice the speed. So if you're at 5 hours of a print, then it's like, it doesn't quite have the same emotional impact. It still sucks and like whatever, but that's just part of business, right? Like you're going to have to do rework every once in a while. But 5 hours is a lot easier to digest than 10. Oh my God.
100%. So let's take this back. I mean, we're talking about momentum for a job, right? And there's something very real about that, of being excited to get to the next thing versus dreading it or worried about it because you're not convinced that your machine is going to be reliable. And we'll do a whole deep dive into what reliability actually means, but the speed makes it easier to be aggressive. That's what I guess I'm getting at, is like you can try things and not worry about the investment that goes into it, and not having it work out and being able to fix it fast. Such a lubricant to the sales process, man. It really gives you this feeling like, I can go and try that. I'm more willing, which makes you a better salesperson, which is going to lead to bigger job scope and the ability to be more aggressive on job scope. So talking about one of the job scopes that you and I have been kicking around for a week or so is this big facility, and their biggest thing is price. That's like they want us to beat the vinyl quote. And that's a pretty common one, right? And you sort of have to ask yourself, what is it going to take to beat this quote? And the number one thing for us when we look at it is how many days on site of printing is it? The printing isn't particularly challenging. The like any one of the prints isn't really a big deal, but the fact that it's a bigger facility is what makes it challenging. It's because the scope is multiple days. So for us, it's how much does it cost per day to be out there printing? So you can see right as soon as we get into a decent sized job, this is a great job. This is in the, you know, this is like $30,000 to $50,000 worth of printing. If it's going to take us 2 weeks to print versus 2 days to print, that's a major difference in the way that we're able to price aggressively against vinyl. So when you're looking at job scope and you're factoring in how the speed of your printer, take me through why this particular job isn't as worrisome, because quality, and I'm going to put this in quotations, it's not like we don't try to achieve high quality everywhere where we go. Break down quality and speed for me, especially in the context of like big and away, like how that all factors into this particular job scope that we were just looking at yesterday.
Generally speaking, the larger your prints, the further away the viewers are going to have to view them to see the whole thing. And the further away you step away from your prints, the less the details matter. So you can't quite pick up on the minor discrepancies or minor artifacts that might exist in the print. And so being able to, in fact, increase your speed, even if it comes at a 10% drop in quality, which like we're not talking significant drop off here, but like, you know, let's say it is a 10% drop off in quality. That's completely acceptable, not just from our standards, but from the customer standards as well. If they could get the job done for less money and in less time than the alternative and are going to have to accept, you know, a quality that we present to them, 100% of the time they say yes. We have yet to come up to a customer that has been given that. They've never been presented those options because it doesn't make a difference from the production side of your traditional print shop. They are printing offsite. It's going to take them 6 weeks to get the stuff printed anyways. So speed isn't really a sales factor for them. You just accept the fact that it's going to take forever and accept the fact that whatever they deliver on site that day is what you have to accept unless you want to go back through the 6 week production cycle.
Totally.
So that's where you can start to really get competitive with some of these vinyl quotes, is that you're offering them a variable that they've never had a chance to choose on.
Yeah, 100%. It is very, very interesting, especially as engineers. And I've dabbled in manufacturing myself, right? So Lean and Six Sigma. The speed can't be understated of like your ability to go position this in bigger jobs and what you can offer and how you can offer it. I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's an exponential coefficient on your ability to sell. And here's why. One of the factors that we're looking at for this bigger job is, okay, how fast can we do it? How fast can we do it if we add machines? Right. And you look at that and you're like, well, now all of a sudden, if I'm twice as fast as the leading competition with our one machine, if I add two, right, how much faster am I? Right. So you start getting in these economies of scale. And one of the things that our business is looking at doing, right, and going to be launching it in 2026, just like a sneak peek for our operator group and only for people who buy into our operator group, we are going to create a rental fleet and allow people to, when they get big job scope, rent machines to increase capacity so that they can go ahead and price more competitively against big jobs, which is where the money is, guys. I don't know if I need to explain this to you, but bigger jobs have the scope you want.
I think it's important to take a step back when you're evaluating the business of wall printing. The highest cost associated to running your business is time on site. It is your labor and personnel getting there, getting set up. Once you're printing, ink is negligible in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
So the less amount of time you spend on site, this is what Mark's getting at, is that you're going to be substantially more profitable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not the least of which you're going to deliver a better service. Like there's also a perception of your customer of like if and when you make, if the easier you make it and faster is easier, people are like, can I see it? Yes. Snap your fingers, it's done. People are going to be able to be like, wow, okay, that was easy, right? This and go after it and want more of it. If it takes 2 weeks to visualize it, it's nowhere near as effective and doesn't leave the splash that you're looking for with customers to get more business from them.
Yeah, and I think one of the other variables. So this job specifically that we're referring to is a lot of really large prints. So they're multiple, but they are going to take us probably anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. In a job scope like this, when you talk about double the speed, it doesn't actually apply to being twice as fast. It could apply to being 3 times as fast. And so what I mean by that 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3. It's that, like, if you're printing with the VPG6 and it's going to take you 4 hours compared to, let's say, the wallPen that would take you 8. Doing 2 prints in one day with a wallPen is going to take you 16 hours. Like, that's a long day. No one's really going to want to put in consecutive 16-hour days. But going from 8 to 4, I could do 3 4-hour prints in a day.
Right.
That's a 12-hour day. Like, that's a long day, but it's totally reasonable. I've tripled the production rate of one of the alternatives.
Yeah, I think as a part of our conversation, if you guys follow us and you look at this, like, more and more we're gravitating towards, like, what does it cost per day? What profit can we get per day? How many prints can we get done per day? When we look at and evaluate job scope, that's really what we're looking at. And the math works even better with faster machines, because to Mark's point, it's all about getting those, like, consecutive prints done in order. How many days does that take you? Like, you really can. 4 hours makes a huge difference on that. And then again, guys, not to beat a dead horse here, but, like, what if something goes wrong? Well, on a 4-hour print, that sucks, but, like, we can fix that. Go on to the next one. We'll paint it. We'll come back and we'll fix it. On an 8-hour, the only print you're doing, you're not realistically going to start the print again, right? Depending, I guess, on when the error happens, but, like, you're not stretching that day into the, like, over 10 hours for one print, right? That's another one of those issues that you got. Yeah.
Which we have heard of operators from some of the other operating other machines who've packed sleeping bags to sleep on site.
You can do it. I don't know why you would, honestly, considering that, you know, this machine is ready to go, and we're telling you, like, this is how we're printing and why we're printing. Why you would punish yourself with slower printing, I don't know. Because, again, going back to, like, what's easier, I don't think that the machine and the technology for the vast majority of people is going to be the limiting factor. I think the limiting factor is your ability to position in the market. If you watch any of my stuff, like, I'll take sales and teach you how to use the machine. Right. But there's something so deflating to the sales process when something doesn't work. And the slower you go to expose that issue, the more you expose that issue, like, the worse it's going to be for your whole sales effort. You're not going to go and sell aggressively when you have problems on a job site. It's just not. I mean, how about this? I won't do it. And I don't know many people that would. There's a handful, certainly, but you got to be a glutton for punishment to want to go back and get punched in the mouth again, you know?
Yeah. Which is interesting because there was never any other choice,
right,
really, up until, what, 3 months ago, 6 months ago?
Yeah, not even. It's like 3 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. That was it. That was wall printing. And again, it can be done. It has been done. Like, there is an avenue to that. But if you're given the choice, nobody's going to choose it. And we're starting to see people come over the fence. Like, we're starting to see people say, you know what, like, I have business. I've demonstrated there's a demand in my market. I now want to ensure that I can capitalize on it effectively.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. We're seeing commentary all over the place. People have tried it with the cheaper machines. Doesn't work. We've got our first wallpen operators coming over and basically just going to park the wallpen until he can sell it and jump onto ours. That's like, I can't really speak. And he's got a lot of, like, ongoing business. Is like, I can't speak to any more of a testament to, like, how effective this is than he saw this thing work. And he's like, well, that's definitely the one I wanted to use going forward, even though I've got all this invested into a wallpen. Right. So there's a lot to be said for guys that are actually printing, guys that are trying to do, and I guess we have to sort of, like, qualify it a bit. It's like consecutive printing is what we're talking about. It's when you have more than one print in a day, like, immediately you're going to see the issue with trying to go slow. It's unfortunately just, I don't think, very viable in this way. You could do a landscaping business with a push-mower. That is, like, theoretically you could run that.
Right.
But, like, do you understand why that's going to be significantly more challenging and why bigger jobs? And, like, do you see how that presents? Like, yes, theoretically you can do it, but do you see you're immediately going to have problems the second you get busy? The second you get anything that requires, like, a big lawn, you're going to, like, die of heat stroke. It's not going to work out well for that's what we're trying to get at. When we say it's possible, people have done it. Yes, with great effort. Like, with great effort, they've been able to take a push mower and create a landscaping company. But, like, honestly, considering what you're trying to do, the major thing you should be looking at, and again, we're speed demons. How many times we said the word speed? Let's do a count here. Like, you look at, for me, it's not the ROI of, like, how much did this cost? It's the ROI of how fast do I earn it back? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I think most people miss in this. They're like, oh, well, this is twice the cost. It's like, no, this machine gets your ROI back twice as fast. I think you're missing the point of your business. Your business is not to not spend upfront capital. Your business is to get a ROI, a return on your investment. Speed there is probably one of the most crucial. So going faster, being able to scope big jobs is like, why would you mess around with $500 jobs if you didn't have to? If you could do $5,000 jobs, think how much faster your business is going to be off the ground running, and you won't have to say no to things, right? So for all those reasons, speed, I mean, on almost every aspect of this business, from the sales to the scope to the finances to all those things, speed should be considered heavily in this. That if this is something that you're trying to build a business around, you're going to want something that matches the pace of your business, right?
Yeah, and I mean, when you know, you talk to a lot of people looking to get started, and they talk about risk mitigation. You know, I'm just like, I really just think I'm going to go with a lower cost machine to dip my toes in the water, to get my feet wet. That's where evaluating speed and speed to ROI becomes really important. And if you are concerned that this isn't going to work, then you should be going out and establishing whether or not there's demand in your market for wall printing services. Go out and sell.
Totally.
Start selling, right? And then if you have a $25,000 client that you're ready to go, you buy the machine and you execute within, 3 days of getting your machine, like our client did, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's not like a super uncommon story. Most of our operators are evaluating jobs as we speak. That's what they're looking at. The good news is they don't have to wonder if they're going to be profitable or if the machine's going to work. Again, can't stress that reliability enough. Like that's the beautiful first thing. But the second thing is, like, they can go jump right into a car dealership and not worry about having to spend 6 weeks on that site to get it done. It's like, no, it can move. You're going to be able to get, instead of 1 a day, you're going to be able to get 3 a day. It's like, depending on the size of the job, that makes a huge difference in your ability to price competitively. So, we just wanted to take a second and explain it, that like really truly what is magical about the G6. Of the first thing that caught our attention, caught my attention, was the width, because I knew that we would be able to move more per pass and move way faster. I think for you, it was the volume saturation level. So why don't we pause here for a second and let you get into that a little bit further, a little bit more. Let's like jump into that a little bit more. Like, what do you mean by that? Give us like a better example, or jump into it more with more detail. Why does saturation stand out to you first on the G6 as opposed to the width?
Yeah, I mean, I think ability to reach color saturation is probably one of the things that most people who view your prints are going to notice first. If you've got a muted graphic on the wall, it doesn't quite pack the same punch as something that really stands up off the wall. It really has to have that color saturation for you to, like, crank your head forward and be like, holy crap, that thing is like, that's a beautiful piece of artwork, or whatever it may be.
People notice color first. When they walk into a space, they don't notice resolution. That's not the first thing. Color saturation is the first thing that is going to scream at them or fall flat, as you say.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's hard to evaluate if you're not in person. If you're not seeing it in person, it's like you see a picture on Instagram, it's like, yeah, that's been filtered and
right.
Saturations have been popped up. When you see it on site, that's where it really makes an impact. And not every machine can achieve the same color saturation. It's certainly not with the same speed. And so what I mean by that is saturation is, generally speaking, representative of how much ink you can put on the wall at any given time. And the amount of ink you can put on the wall is dictated by the speed at which your print head, your physical print head, your nozzles can fire ink, right? It's literally putting drops of ink. Your DPI is the drops of ink on the wall. And so the higher your DPI, the more your saturation levels are up. More color you can get on the wall, more ink you get on the wall.
So because color is really hard to achieve for most of these print heads, and again, gravity fed ink system and smaller, lower volume, print heads that we see on the market, what we're saying is that if you go and you look at the stated speed, print speed, like, we could do a lot of things in one pass, not worry about color saturation, not worry about print artifacts. And like, theoretically, it moves that fast, right? Sort of like you could sprint with your push mower, right? Like, you could be running full bore with that print mower behind it. It's like, are you going to do a good job? Is that realistic? So what we're saying is, like, yes, the stated speed on a lot of these specs is like, it can physically travel that fast. Yes. Would you ever do it though? Right? The answer is like unequivocally no. Like, you would never run it at those speeds, because you wouldn't get the ink saturation. You'd get banding or other artifacts in there. Realistically, the vast majority of people, I think very correctly, err on the side of like, I don't mind waiting an extra 2 hours or whatever the extra difference is between the passes if I know that it's going to look good. That's, I would say, across the board, and maybe you can comment on your experience with operators, they will gravitate towards the slower, more sure thing. The second they get on their own printing, I would say almost everybody tips the scale over to like, whatever gets the result we need, I don't mind sitting here waiting. What do you think? Is that a fair assessment?
If that's the only option, then that's absolutely, because you go back to, if it goes wrong, I'm having to double my time on site.
Right.
So you're going to choose reliability over almost every other factor available to you.
Right.
Now, if you can guarantee reliability and get speed, well, you're always going to print at a faster speed. No one's choosing to print slowly. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And another example of where speed plays a big role in this is like, well, are you including white ink or not? Right. The wallPen, no, you realistically would have to have the speed the way that the print heads are orientated. It's going to run slower when it's printing white ink. And that's just a whole bunch of different examples of like where, when you're looking at a job scope and you're considering the machine and how you're going to go about it, like you really do kind of have to get yourself situated around what the technology can really do. What's the on-site reality of the printer, right? Because if you need white ink, you're going to have to factor that in. That's harder to achieve. Typically speaking, you're going to slow the machine down, right? Now, all of this with the big asterisks, and the reason why, if you look at some of our branding that's out there right now, we're talking about a new industry standard. The G6 is in a different class than the rest of these print heads that are out there. It stands alone in terms of volume, what it's designed to do, how wide it is, like everything we're talking about, we're achieving at our baseline speed, right? Which, if you take a look at the link in our description below, if it's not there, we'll add it very shortly. It's a direct side-by-side of what we consider to be our conservative, if you're on site, what the vast majority of our operators are going to do against a wallPen, what we had one of our top operators, what would you run at these settings if they were comparable, right? We ended up being twice as fast. That's where a lot of our math is coming from, of like an 8-hour wallPen print versus a 4-hour G6 print. Like, very, very different in job scope. Think about 5 consecutive days turning into 10 consecutive days and how different that job scope looks right when I want it. I want it on the big job. I want it when I'm getting into the meat and potatoes of what this business can do with those 5 and 6-figure jobs, consecutive days. That's really where that speed matters so much. I mean, if you're just printing one print, to your point, do you care if it's 45 minutes or an hour and a half? Like, not as crucial, really, if you're just doing the one. What if you're doing 10 of those? Then all of a sudden, when you go to approach the job, what's your risk threshold? What's your profitability? What's your communication to the customer? Like, we have one of our biggest job scopes that we ever did. We needed it done by a certain date. That's not very uncommon, is like they have an opening or something and they want it done by a certain date. You have to be able to achieve that, right? There's a risk associated with it. You take this job on and you don't hit the date. That can be a challenge. Speed allows you to get there. It allows you to be aggressive in your bidding, right?
Where all of this is going, I think one of the most important things for people to understand when they're evaluating wall printers is that stated speed and real world speeds are generally different. And the only way to truly get a understanding of what the real world speed of a printer is you got to speak to the operators. Yeah. The manufacturers are always going to have an opinion of what it is. Unless you can see it printing and you can time it, you got to get what real world speed looks like under the conditions in which you're going to print. That usually means it's going to be some sense of solid color, likely white undercoat. Seeing the printer print under those conditions is going to give you an indication of what the speed actually is. And that's where this side by side was so important for us, because there was a lot of talk of numbers and, hypotheticals and guesses at speed. So we had the operator come in, let's put these machines side by side and let's see what it is. Exact same print, exact same conditions, and let it run. And when you see it run for twice as long, especially in the time lapse, like it really stands out to you on like, holy crap, okay, this is real. This is what real world speed looks like.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to work towards in sort of embedding a standard print, like if people want to take their printers, if you have any of the other manufacturers out there with the other heads and whatnot, and you want to come to our shop and go side by side, or if you want to send us a video, like we roughly speaking are doing 5 foot by 5 foot prints. How long did it take you? And is at the quality that you would print for a concerning customer, right? So like that, what would that look like, right? And we'd love to see how these machines all compare, because that, like you said, that's real world. I'm not calling anyone a liar, but like I do kind of want to look closer at like when was the last time you ran a job at that rate, or what operator agrees with you on that point. It almost should be have the operator group vote You know, like what speed would you run this at? And like, to really give people a condition of like, most people run it at 8 pass. You know what I mean? Most people do it that way.
Could print at it and what it does print at are generally different. And so you got to figure out what it does print at. What does the machine that you're looking at actually, for the speed it actually prints at? It's the only real measure of speed.
Agreed. Yeah. So cool. Well, listen, we're going to definitely check out that link down below. Take a look at the side-by-side there. We want to do a lot more of that. If you have any votes or opinions on the machines, or maybe you own one and you want to come and show us, or just take a video, like anybody out there who's interested in the speed discussion, especially as it relates to real world, I want to see one of these cheaper machines go and do multiple days of printing. If you've got that, or anybody wants to talk about that, I'd like to see, how did you deal with it? What was it like? Anybody who's got any commentary on those things, we'd be more than happy to. Full disclosure, we do not have a ton of experience with these other machines. We do know them very well, but I wouldn't say that we've like ever really considered taking them onto a job site and printing with them, nor would I, especially with the G6 as an option. So yeah, we're open to it, and we'll get into some more topics in 2026.
Looking forward to it.